Hi guys, Sean here from DigiDirect. Today we're going to be checking out Panasonic's newest camera, the GX9. Now in terms of nomenclature and its superficial look, the GX9 is the successor to the GX8 from a few years back. But we'll see that due to a couple changes in Panasonic's lineup in the intervening years, the GX9 is actually a bit less of a direct successor to the GX8 than the name would imply. We'll discuss the reasons for that, but let's start with a look at the body of the GX9. So the GX9 has a pretty similar body shape to the GX8, with the exception being that it's quite significantly smaller. The GX8 was actually a fairly chunky camera, and the GX9 instead returns to a very small and compact form factor. Like most Panasonic cameras, it has a range of customizable function buttons and strong touchscreen functionality. It also features 2 control dials and an exposure compensation dial. Notably, the GX9 actually loses the fully articulating LCD screen of the GX8. It now features a tilting LCD screen instead. So it can still tilt up and down, but it can't flip all the way around anymore. Similarly, the mic jack from the GX8 has been removed. Granted, that was a frustratingly non-standard 2.5mm mic jack on the GX8, but the GX9 now has no mic or headphone jack at all. It's also not a weather-sealed camera, which the GX8 was. The GX9 does gain a built-in flash though, which the GX8 didn't have. We see the same tilting style viewfinder here. It's an interesting design, allowing you to look down into the viewfinder to shoot from a different perspective. Personally, I don't find it super useful, but it doesn't hurt, and it can be helpful, particularly if you're trying to be a little bit more inconspicuous when you're shooting street photography. On the side, we have an HDMI and USB port. The GX9 uses one of the smaller Panasonic batteries, so you'll probably want to have a few on hand if you're planning to use it for an extended period of time. Although you can charge the camera through its USB port, so if you have one of those mobile power packs, that can come in handy here. Finally, the GX9 has Wi-Fi and now also Bluetooth Low Energy to connect to your mobile device. So when the GX8 came out about 3 years ago, it was Panasonic's top-tier photocentric camera at the time, in contrast to the GH4, which was their main video-centric camera at the time. Now in the intervening years, that mantle of the main top-tier photo camera has been taken over by the G9. Now that means that the GX9 is not a top-tier photocentric camera, as some people may have been expecting, being the successor to the GX8. It's been moved to more of a mid-tier level in the lineup, with features to reflect that, as we've already seen in some of the body design changes. It's still a very respectable camera, as we'll see, but I just want to make that clarification up front, just to manage people's expectations, because a lot of people may be thinking, you know, considering where the GX8 was in the lineup when it came out, how high it was, they might be expecting the same from the GX9, and it's been transitioned a little bit to more of a mid-tier level. So inside the GX9 is the same sensor that's in the flagship G9 camera, which is a 20 megapixel Micro Four Thirds sensor with no low pass filter. The GX8 had a low pass filter, which means that we'll eke out a little bit of extra sharpness on the GX9 over the GX8. Another nice feature is a new shutter shock mechanism that Panasonic claims will remove 90% of shutter shock. Another thing is an improved in-body image stabilization system. So the GX8 had 4-axis image stabilization. The GX9 now has 5-axis image stabilization, and it also has Panasonic's dual IS system, which syncs the in-body stabilization with any stabilization on any lenses that you may be using. So it's a very solid system. I really liked how that performed when using the GX9 here. It makes it a lot easier to shoot at lower shutter speeds for photos, which lets you, shoot in lower light conditions. It's super handy for shooting handheld video, because it gets rid of a lot of that handheld video shake. Very effective system in the GX9. They did a great job on that. As an example, here I'm shooting handheld at 75mm, which means 150mm in terms of full frame equivalent, and it's quite steady, so it's a very well implemented system. So the GX9 has a 49-point depth from defocus contrast detection autofocus system. We've seen this on some other Panasonic cameras in the past. It's quite fast, very responsive, pretty accurate, and is very fast to acquire initial focus. It also is functional at up to -4 EV, so that means you're going to be able to use it in lower light situations, which is quite handy. It does a decent job of tracking subjects. It's not incredible, but it does an all right job. Now, Panasonic does have a bit of a known weakness in their DFD system in terms of autofocus for video. However, I will say that most of those issues focus around facial tracking at close proximity. That's the situation where you're going to come into the most issues here, and it definitely does struggle with that a little bit on the GX9 here. But outside of that specific situation, I think it does a pretty good job. All of the video footage that I've shot with the GX9 was using continuous autofocus, and for the most part, it performed pretty adequately. Additionally, the camera can shoot at up to 9 frames per second with AF lock and burst shooting, or 6 frames per second with AF tracking. It's a little bit faster than the GX8 was. It also has a pretty respectable buffer of about 40 raw photos or 100 JPEGs. So depending on your photo size and so on, you can shoot for about 4 to 10 seconds with this camera. So pretty decent results. Like almost all Panasonic cameras, the GX9 is a very competent video shooter. It can shoot 4K at up to 30 frames per second at up to 100 megabits per second. Panasonic's been doing 4K video in their cameras for a lot longer than most manufacturers. They've got it down. The output is really nice, very sharp, very, very high quality footage. However, the fact that the GX9 does not have a headphone or mic jack in it is going to limit its use for serious video usage. It's certainly still applicable for casual usage or maybe a B cam, but for serious videographers who are using a one main camera, that lack of headphone and audio inputs is probably going to limit the GX9 there. Panasonic is also leveraging the 4K video functionality to include their ubiquitous 4K photography modes like 4K photo, which lets you shoot, basically pull a still from a 4K video, 4K live cropping, and post focus, which lets you take a series of photos and change the focus point of the photo after the fact, which is particularly useful for macro photography. Lastly, there's a couple of new grab bag style features in the GX9. First being L Monochrome D, which is a new black and white shooting mode, which gives you a very nice punchy black and white effect that's very appealing. There's a new grain simulator, which randomly generates grain, giving you a bit more of a filmic kind of look. And there's a new mode called Sequence, which lets you shoot a series of photos, and then you can blend them together and create a sequence out of them, which is very cool. So in conclusion, the GX9 does have some compromises compared to the GX8 that may surprise some GX8 owners who were expecting a straight upgrade, but it's still a well-performing camera that now leverages its compact size and reliable feature set to be a good performer. Now, Panasonic is aiming this at a bit of a street shooting market, and I tend to agree with that. Street and travel as well, I think, are good applications for the GX9. And while the loss of the fully articulating LCD screen and the mic jacks may irk some video shooters, to be honest, Panasonic has so many options out there for good video shooting cameras that I'm not too concerned about this on the GX9. It is still good for casual video or also as a B cam potentially as well. Overall, if you're looking for a well-performing mid-tier camera that's compact and inconspicuous, yet imports a number of proven features from the rest of Panasonic's lineup, plus a few new things, the GX9 is a good option. You can order the GX9 on our website at www.digidirect.com.au, or you can come to one of our stores and try it out firsthand. We've got stores in the Sydney CBD, Bondi Junction, Miranda, Chatswood, the Brisbane and Melbourne CBD, and Cannington, Western Australia. Thanks guys, take care.